Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen, welcome back to Sunday Morning and the Old Cookbook Show. Today we're going to do a recipe out of this 1941 cookbook called Old Favorite Honey Recipes, put out by the American Honey Institute. This is 1941, and I have also a 1945 edition, which is revised and enlarged, contains a lot more recipes. This was a series of cookbooks that started to show up midway through the Great Depression, and then continued into the war years, meant to show people that, there was another source of sugar that they could cook with that didn't have to be imported from overseas. It was local, you could find it readily available, and you could use it in all of your baking and cooking. And the book starts out with a lot of hints about how you can incorporate honey into your baking, what you'd need to change in the recipe in order to do this. Of course, they want you to use the recipes that are in the book as well. Also gives a breakdown of, what the average chemical composition of honey is. And it's very interesting that honey has the same chemical composition, including the amount of levulose, as high levulose corn syrup does. Anyway, we'll move on to the recipe. We're going to make something called American pudding. I've never made a recipe called American pudding, but this seems really familiar to me. And I kind of think I know where this is going to go. So we start out by creaming some butter. It gives an amount of butter, but we only use half at the beginning of this operation. And I get in there, start creaming that. Really not much butter to cream. And so mix that in with the sugar. Now I've got some flour here, and to that I'm going to add salt and baking powder. And we'll give that a good mix. Now the milk gets added a little bit to the butter and sugar. And then we alternate with the flour. Pretty much the same creaming operation for any sort of cake. Little bit of milk, little bit of flour. Okay, that's mixed up really well. Next in asks for currants. And currants, I know I've said this before because it's a common misconception that people have. These are not black currants or red currants from the bush ribes. These are actually raisins. They're Corinthian raisins. So anytime you see currants in a recipe in North America or in English cooking, and you're baking, 99 times out of 100, they're going to be asking for these, which is a raisin. So anyway, put those in. Next, lemon zest. Okay, I'm going to say that's all the lemon zest I need. And so we'll just mix that in. Now, I've got a buttered baking dish here ready to go. And we're going to put the batter in the bottom. Not a whole lot of batter here for a dish of this size. And it actually calls out a dish this size, 8 by 8 by 2, which is kind of interesting. Not very common yet. In cookbooks to be calling out specifically a dish as well as the size. So I'll just kind of spread that out in the bottom of the dish. So now it's time to deal with the honey. You're wondering, where's the honey? I mean, we put sugar in there, or table sugar, white table sugar. This is where the honey comes in. I'm using a fairly light flavored honey today. I really love buckwheat honey, but it's a big, bold, robust flavor, and it would probably overpower what's going on here. This is our cousin's honey, and I'm going to look at the camera right now at all of the cousins, my cousins, Julie's cousins, who keep bees, and say, why are none of you keeping bees where there's buckwheat so that I can get some buckwheat honey? It's getting harder and harder to find. That being said, I had some honey this year that I really loved, and those were bees that were kept in downtown Toronto. They were foraging in a very urban environment, and the honey tasted amazing. Not sure why. Anyway, I love cooking with honey. And I know I made a dig at honey earlier by saying, you know, it has the same amount of levulose as high levulose corn syrup. It does. There's no way around that. So I've got the honey in here. I'm supposed to put in butter, the other half of the butter, a pinch of salt, and then a cup and a quarter of boiling or just boiled water. And that should melt the butter and melt up the honey a little bit too. Now I'm supposed to pour this over the batter. And I've got the oven preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm gonna put a baking sheet in first, just in case it bubbles over. In it goes. It says to bake for 40 to 45 minutes. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, I've let this cool on the countertop for a little while. It's still kind of warm, but when it came out of the oven, the sugar syrup was just bubbling and boiling. It was dangerous. So it is one of those inverted puddings. The cake batter rises to the top, and the sauce forms at the bottom.
Hey, friends. Hey, it's sauce and cake.
It's a sauce and cake.
Sauce.
Although in this particular book, it's
There's
called
a lot of sauce.
yeah, and it's called American pudding in this book. I have a feeling this is going to be unbelievably sweet.
What did you make it with?
It's honey.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If that's all honey on the bottom.
Yep. That's sugar coma waiting to happen. Okay.
Well, I guess we try it.
Yeah.
You know what? That little bit of currant
Yeah.
is really good in that.
It is.
It's got that little bit of slightly different flavor. It is not as I guess because you were ready. I was ready for the sugar coma.
Yeah.
It isn't as
Doesn't present as sweet.
front. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not as sweet forward, not as sickly sweet. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a very edible sweet.
The lemon is lost. So that amount of lemon zest completely lost.
Although that might be why it isn't cloyingly sweet.
The acid.
You may not know that. I mean, it may not. Mm-hmm. Its impact may be greater than you think. Mm-hmm. That's actually quite pleasant.
Yeah.
I was afraid when you were like
So,
how you were shoveling it. Clearly, we're shoveling it in. So
but I also know, now that I've had like 3 or 4 scoops, and there's 2 left, that by the time I get through these last 2 scoops, I'm done. The sugar builds.
maybe if you'd eaten a little slower.
Maybe if there's some ice cream on top.
Yeah, that's going to help with the sugar. Whipped cream. What?
Serve warm with cream. We are supposed to put cream on top.
And that would oddly also cut the
Yeah.
the sugar flavor, but wouldn't necessarily make it any healthier for you.
I'm disappointed because I didn't put the cream on, but I've got lots here.
I still have some. We got
Lots here that I can put cream on it later. So this is pretty good pudding. You need a light flavored honey that isn't too overpowering. I might increase the amount of lemon somehow, but maybe you don't need to taste the lemon. Maybe the lemon is just there, that acid component, to cut the...
I would actually consider putting other dry fruits,
Yeah?
right? And more dry fruits, like some apricots or you know.
Cranberries. I think dried cranberries in that would be really good.
That would really be a contrast.
Okay, so this is really good. And I mean, it comes into that thing that Julie and I call a sauce and cake, in the way that it inverts and bakes. I'd give that one a try. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.